My over 40 baddies, y'all need to tune in because I'm about to blow your mind. One question I get asked very often is it impossible for me to get lean after I turn 40? The answer is no. And if you've checked out my Instagram, you've seen the clients that I end up transforming, my team transforms, most of them are over 40. So I have a lot of meat and potatoes in this episode today. That is stuff that you've likely heard me say throughout the years of the podcast, but it is all in this pretty little package for those of you that continue to tell yourself that I'm over 40 and there's no way I can look like that, air quotes, right? So if you have been struggling to lose weight, you are struggling with changing your body shape, trying to figure out, I don't know, what's the best exercise program for me? How much should I be eating? Should I be doing a weight loss injectable? Should I be doing keto? We're going to talk about all that today, my friend. Let's take a step back. For those of you that are new here, my name is Diane Flores. I've been in the health and fitness space for over 17 years. I'm an IFBB bodybuilding pro, which also makes me a professional dieter. And I'm a personal trainer, I'm a health coach, and I have been tracking macros and calories for a very long time. I've been 200 pounds. I have professionally dieted my whole professional bodybuilding life. I've gained weight, I've lost weight, I've been shredded, I have been obsessive, I've hated my body, I now love my body. I've had unhealthy eating behaviors and everything in between. So just some opening thoughts. Most people want a quick fat loss solution. That is usually their pain point when they are seeking out some kind of diet plan, exercise plan, following somebody on the internet. Not always. I know a lot of you have found me because you are into weight training or you're just getting into weight training and you are trying to find other people who are sharing that knowledge. So thank you for joining me in my mission. Now, one thing I think a lot of us already know is that the US is one of the most obese nations in the world. I believe it actually is the most obese, okay? Now, let's talk about you and me, how this conversation applies to you and me. You know, how do I live my life? And, I like my body and I feel really good. And wouldn't it be just freaking amazing to not have to worry about that? And I know that sounds for some like that sounds impossible. That sounds like a pipe dream. I've always struggled. I've heard it all, but I'm going to share with you 10 things. You guys know I love a list of 10 things. I just feel like it. I don't know. I like an even number. Okay. That I had to do differently. Things that when we bring women into our programs and coach them, that we have to consider when they're over 40, over 50. And these things are things that I had to master over the years to get my body to stay in a state where I feel comfortable most of the time, most years, probably the last 3 years for sure, where I've felt that this is just a standard go-to for me, right? Some things are going to be hard for you to wrap your head around, especially for those of us over 40 when we've had a lot of the old conditioning with diet dogmas and things that we believe to be true once before. And it took me years to let it all click, right? The light bulb go off. So let's go ahead and start chipping away at this 10 things to consider if you feel like it's impossible for you to get lean after 40. Now, the first thing is you have to be very honest with yourself, okay? And I felt that this was important to start with this point because I do hear a lot of women, this is one of the most, I hear a lot of common phrases and catchphrases when people come to us is, well, I eat pretty good. I use air quotes because I absolutely hate that. So if you ever meet me in person and we have a conversation, please don't say that. No, I'm just kidding. I'll still love you, but I'll be like, do you listen to the podcast? I'm going to tell you to track your food. I had to become very aware of what I was doing. And this is something that a lot of our clients again also have that like light bulb moment. And you have to be honest with yourself about where you're not being honest with yourself. Okay. Where are you lying to yourself? Now, bad habits, unhealthy exercise habits, honestly, either one way or the other, too much, not enough. Um, Foods that you keep consuming that you know are not contributing to your success, and also things like stress that you're not addressing. There was this time I had to be very honest with myself. A lot of our clients go through this period as well, where they're like, yeah, well, I was actually eating like an asshole. I just thought I was eating good, but until I really had to get clear and start really understanding food, I just kept repeating the same old bad habits. Okay. Now, when it comes to your exercise habits, there are two sides of this coin, because I know that I have brought in some clients that have found me from the bodybuilding world and all that. And they might have the opposite situation where their dietary habits and their eating habits and their exercise habits might not be the best. It might be swinging the pendulum too far the other way. I have been here in that spot, and you have to ask yourself, is what you're currently doing or what you think to be the answer something that you can sustain forever? Is this a diet that you can see yourself eating forever? Is this an exercise program or frequency or style that you can also do forever, right? If you are beating your body down and it's like too much, too much, too much, there is a point of diminishing returns. I'll talk about a little bit about my story as well and how that came to a big come to Jesus moment for me. But I was tired of being in this space. And for those of you that come from the bodybuilding competition world, you could probably understand where I would get nervous, like knowing that I had to go to a restaurant, right? If I have to go to a restaurant for some kind of meal, if I was there, it'd be like, oh, like ugh, I don't, I can't have a drink, or, I can't have appetizers, or I'd be stressed out if I was traveling and be like, oh, what if I can't get my normal foods when I'm traveling and things like that. When you get into that space and you stay in there perpetually, it's not a healthy space to be in. Okay. When you're competing, there is some validity to those things needing to be very predictable. I will say that. However, doing, almost 20 bodybuilding shows, it's a really hard habit to break, because my brain is like still stuck in, well, not now, but for a while was still stuck in this like, anything less than 6 days a week, I'm not good enough. Anything less than, 98% whole foods, I'm a failure, right? That can get into a really cyclical, unhealthy cyclical cycle. You know what I mean? Now, the other thing you have to get honest with yourself too, swinging the pendulum the other way for my other client or my other listeners who might be saying, well, that's not me. I'm just trying to get my exercise and nutrition consistent. There are other things you have to get honest with yourself about, right? Like, are you having a glass of wine a couple nights a week? Or is that really like most nights a week? And is it really like a couple glasses most nights a week, right? Is that the reality? Because a lot of times you may eat good, insert annoying air quotes, but you're also drinking good too. And it happens to be wine. And those calories add up super duper fast, along with a whole domino effect of other not positive effects to your body, to your metabolism. And it actually is worse when we age. Okay. So that's number one, is you have to really get honest with yourself. And sometimes we don't want to get honest with ourselves because we realize, well, when I get honest with myself, I'm going to have to make some kind of change. And sometimes we like to stay stuck in our old ways because it's comfortable and it's familiar, and everything else feels a little more like friction and challenge. And sometimes you're just not ready for that. But at the end of the day, you have to get very honest with yourself before you make the bold claim that after 40, I just can't lose the belly fat or get lean. Okay. The second thing is you have to realize that it's not nutrition versus your exercise, right? I often feel like most people fall into the trap of thinking that they're going to sign up for some sort of exercise program or buy some kind of infomercial-y thing online or some influencer's program, right? Even mine, I'm an influencer. You buy my program, you're going to do our magical exercises, and this is going to solve your problems. And this is something that I feel like I constantly need to repeat because with the studio, right? I have a studio. For those of you maybe that are new here listening, welcome. I have a personal training studio in Modesto, California, which is for all women, and it's exclusively a personal training studio. I've got a team of trainers there, and we have clients that come in, and one trainer works with a small group of women, usually around four. And one thing that we hear often is when people join, we have an option, right? You can just come in and train with a trainer, right? Where they personal train you, they teach you how to do the things. We put you through these great workouts and make sure your form is good, all the things, everything you would imagine a personal trainer. And they're not ready to dive into the nutrition piece of things, right? Because we don't like to slam everybody with everything at once unless that's something they're electing for, right? When you sign up, it's just training. If you want to add on nutrition, that's something we can add on. What we have found is that most of the women who come in and do a membership, they enjoy the sessions, they love the trainers, they love the environment, they're all about it. And if they aren't doing the nutrition piece of things, meaning they are working with one of our coaches, we do the Goddess Body Project, or they can layer on something like ditch deprivation, which is essentially very similar. It's their nutrition piece of it. If they aren't layering the two, and they just do the training, they're like, it's great, but it's not working. No, bitch, you're not working. Okay. You're coming in for your sessions, which depending on what membership you have, let's just be very generous and say you're coming in 4 times a week, which is very rare. We actually try not to recommend that to most people because 3 days a week of the style of training we do, if it's not something you're used to, is going to be intense at first, right? It's going to be, you're going to feel it. Let's just say that you're coming in 4 days a week. That's 1 hour per session. That's 4 hours a week that we get to spend with you. How many hours are in a week? We're gonna math that up on Diane's favorite little calculator. 24 times 7 is 168 glorious mother bleeping hours that are in a week. We get to see you for 4 of those. Simple math says the 164 other hours that you are by yourself, you're likely fucking off your diet. Okay. So it does not matter how hard you weightlift. Weightlifting is in my opinion, the best way to change the shape of your body and grow old gracefully and increase bone density and increase your natural hormones and a whole multitude of positive benefits. And also, that does not erase your trash eating habits. Okay. It all starts with your nutrition. So, the reason why most exercise programs that you purchase, right? Like you buy a thing online or you buy some, who buys DVDs anymore? But you buy some kind of thing that is an exercise program. Most of the time, it comes with some sort of diet program, diet plan. I remember back in the day, P90X. Okay. This was before I was like personal training. Actually, I think I was personal training, but I didn't have my business yet. I was doing personal training as like a side hustle. And I was doing P90X, and P90X even came with their like nutrition guide, right? There is a reason why all of these exercise programs include a diet plan. It's because they know that the exercise isn't enough to produce the change. So when you see these people on these infomercials, commercials online, I keep seeing this ad come through on Instagram and I need to screenshot it because it's this beautiful girl. She's younger. She's got to be, I don't know, late 20s, maybe early 30s, very athletic physique, and she's promoting some body weight program, home program. And I'm like, I hope you're disclosing to people that that's not how you got your body. Okay. Because there's no way in hell that she achieved that body with her at home workouts and no diet, right? So exercise matters, but it's a small piece of the puzzle for your weight loss. So now, and this is what I try to get other women to embody in the mindset is I look at exercise now to change my shape more than anything, right? I look at my training in terms of how is this going to change my shape? How is this going to get my muscles to look how I want them to look and how I look when I'm in jeans or I'm in a dress or I'm naked or in a bikini, right? It's how do I want how do I want my curves to look? And that's how we devise our training, right? That's why I'm always an asshole about like, don't be training with your dude. Like, why? I mean, unless you guys are doing a leg day or something, but let's get real. A lot of guys don't like leg day unless they're bodybuilders, or athletes or something. So exercising to change the shape of your body, not to burn calories and burn fat. Like the diet does that part. So I hope by me spending enough time on this topic throughout the life of the podcast that we start changing our mindset around that. Okay. The next thing, number 3, is you have to know the truth about calories. So let's address the calories that you're burning and the calories that you're eating. Okay. We have to stop chasing that calorie burn. And this is where we get stuck in that cycle of, I need to hit 500 calories in this workout. I need to burn 500 calories. I stopped doing that years ago, years and years and years and years ago. Probably, I don't even know. I can't even remember. Definitely over 5 years ago where I'm like, oh, no, got to keep going. It's one of those things where you never know exactly how many calories your workout is burning exactly to the T, right? You can have some generalization from your smartwatch, from a machine, but even with the foods that you're eating, you don't know to exact preciseness that you're getting the calories that you think you're getting. You may be getting more, you may be getting less. The easiest way to work around this is that knowing nutrition is key, is paramount, right? Because when you can start being more mindful about your meals and your snacks and things like that, you realize where it is that you need to either change some habits, tighten things up, or where you're slipping up in terms of your nutrition for you to see the results that you need. So while calories are an important part of this conversation, it's important to know that you have to be in some kind of deficit to drop your body fat, right? So there needs to be that energy exchange of less calories than your body needs for it to produce the exercise effects, right? So if you are not in a calorie deficit and you are not burning enough calories, then you are going to struggle with that. So at the end of the day, the takeaway here for this is that your metabolism is going to slow down as we age. That's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately. Okay. It makes it much harder for us to put on muscle. And that's why I think a lot of women come to me and they're like, oh, I've been weight training. I'm 45, I'm 50. It just seems really slow. Nothing feels like it's working. Stick around because we are going to talk about some other things that could be affecting that. But the key is that if you can't put on muscle or you're not trying to put on muscle, then you store more fat, which ultimately slows down your metabolism even more. So that's why it's important to think about your nutrition, the calories you're eating, consuming enough protein, and making that the driver for your fat loss success and not your workouts, right? Your workouts are important. Yes, they do burn some calories, but I don't work out thinking that that's going to make me lose weight, right? I stopped that like old school thinking. It's like it's not that it doesn't work. It's that's not the primary driver of your fat loss. You want to use your workouts and your training as ways to make your body stronger, to challenge your muscles, to change your, your shape if that's something that you're into, to be healthier, reduce aches and pains, move the vessel in which you have to carry yourself through the world. But getting in this vicious cycle of I just need to keep exercising more and eating less is awful. Like it is a terrible place to be in, and it actually wrecks your metabolism even more. So you don't want to get stuck in that trap. So what you do instead is you have to understand how much you're eating. If you don't understand that, then you cannot make that bold statement of I eat good and I just can't get lean over 40. If you have not tracked your food and done it for a couple weeks to see the trends and see where you're actually not being honest with yourself, it's if you don't do that, you can't really make that claim. Okay. And I know it's annoying. It's one thing to do. You don't have the patience for it, but it is very eye opening and it will tell you a lot. Okay. Now, I don't track anymore because I'm content. And that's where I want you to be eventually, but it does come with practice and experience. So, tracking for me, I did it for 10 years and I felt like I could trust myself to know when I look at stuff how much I'm getting, right? I feel like my eyeballs are like the human version of my fitness pal. I can look at something and be like, that's probably 600 calories, that meal or whatever. So it's a skill that anybody can acquire. It just takes some practice and it has worked really well for me. And especially the last year, I lost, I don't know, I lost about 12 pounds it's probably been, well, a little under a year ago because I had to get real with myself. I had to say like, okay, I'm having too much fun, was dining out way too much during the week. Alcohol beverage would, be on a Wednesday, then it'd be on a Friday, and then it'd be Saturday and Sunday. And I'm like, okay, we need to rein that in. Okay. I was not feeling good. I was just like, I'm not recovering from my workouts. And I was clearly putting on some body fat and I did not like that. So I just had to scale some things back, but I've maintained my weight and, I'll go up a pound, I'll go down a few pounds. It's just kind of ping pongs around the same 5 pounds, but I don't weigh myself obsessively anymore. It's not something I focus on. It's not the first thing I think about. It used to be. It's no longer. Okay. Because I know I can trust myself. I know what to do. And I just need to eat and be mindful when I'm eating. Now, on the topic of scale weight and weighing yourself is the next point, which is asking yourself, if I weigh myself daily, is that something that's actually beneficial for me in my weight loss journey? And only you are going to know the answer to that. But let me give you some things to think about, bestie. Okay. I stopped weighing myself every day well over, I don't even know. I feel like it's been 8 months ago, maybe longer. And part of that was I was in the whole transition of moving. And when I was in the transition of moving, it was kind of like the last thing on my mind at my other house as I was packing and kind of still trying to do all my other responsibilities. And then when I moved to this new house, my scale was not in a convenient place. It was just like in the way and it didn't really work. So I just moved it. And it was kind of one of those things where I think I like pulled it out a few days in a row. And then I was like, this is a pain in the ass. And like, it's kind of saying the same thing. So I just put it in the closet and I stopped weighing myself. And then I would bring it out maybe once a week and just kind of see, okay, where am I at? But the reality of it is I know when I'm feeling heavier. I know based off of how my clothes are fitting, how I'm looking in the mirror when I'm naked, just overall that overall feeling. And if I like my shape, who cares? Who really cares? Like if I like all that and I feel good and I feel good in my clothes, it's not affecting my mood and it's not weighing heavily on my mind or making me feel stressed out. Why do I give a shit what the scale says? Right. So you have to think about that. Like, why am I going to let some piece of metal dictate my mood? That sounds absolutely silly. Sounds absolutely silly to me. So it has zero effect on my mental health anymore. And that's what I want for every single woman. And some of you are like, yeah, me too. So even if I go up like 5, 7 pounds, if I go on like an extended vacation or a holiday or something like that, I get on there, I'm like, great, it's data. I figured that. I'm not really worried about it. And honestly, I usually don't even bother because I know it's going to be up, but I'll check like a few days later, kind of see where we're at. Did I lose some of that like water retention and things like that? Now, I know that some people like to track because it keeps them motivated. And if that's you, rock on with your bad self. But you have to know there is going to be a point of diminishing returns where you're going to get on that scale and it's not always going to keep going down. Okay. It is not always going to keep going down. So you have to know that that is just a fact. And when that happens, what's going to happen to your motivation? Is your motivation going to stop? Is this where you quit because you're like, nothing's changing? Because it's, again, it should not be dropping all the time. It shouldn't. That's not normal. Now, of course, there are some people that I feel it is important for them to make sure that they are staying on track. And that can be somebody who is, their health is at risk, they're in danger, for some serious health conditions or health problems, and they want to keep that ball rolling and kind of see where they're at and where they're paced at and things like that. And obviously, like competitors, we got to make sure we get you down to a certain level of body fat, and sometimes the scale is a helpful marker for that, especially if you've competed before and you kind of know your stage weights and things. But it's no longer right for me. Okay. It's a tool that I pull out sometimes, very rarely. I will say this just dawned on me. If you followed me through my little like week of, I'm going to drop 5 pounds this week, that was the most consistent I weighed myself in 8 months. Okay. I did that right before New Year's Eve. We had a trip planned and I was going to be scantily clad. And I thought, well, I want to just drop 5 pounds. I want to feel really, really good. And so I took you guys along that journey and I think I dropped like 6 or 7 pounds that week. But it's not a daily tool. It's not something that crosses my mind. It does not, it used to be the first thing that I thought of and it no longer is, which is so freeing. Let me tell you. If you're going, okay, I need to know when I should be doing this. When should I be tracking my macros or doing a food journal or something like that? If you are looking for optimal results and getting really real with yourself about how much food you're actually consuming, you need to track because you are likely forgetting calories. Most people forget about liquid calories and sauces and creams and dressings and things like that. And while you might think it's not a big deal, those add up and it is a big deal. So I always recommend if you're going to track, you got to track everything. You got to be super aware of all of the things. And it sounds neurotic and it is for a moment, but what it does is it gives you information. It gives you data. And if you can look at that and you thought maybe like if somebody asked you and you're like, how many calories do you think you eat? And you're like, probably 1,600. You start tracking through the day and you're like, oh, a glass of wine at dinner. Oh, I had a handful of peanut M&Ms on my boss's desk. Oh, I had a Gatorade that had 80 calories in it. Oh, I had ranch dressing on my salad, right? All these things will add up. And then your 1,600 calories now turns into 1,800 calories, which you might think is not a big deal. But if you're already, let's just hypothetically say, not a very big person, you're a small person and you don't have a ton of weight to lose, maybe you've got 15 pounds, that can keep you stuck for a long time. We've seen it time and time again. Clients, I don't know why nothing's changing. I don't know, nothing's changing. I'm sticking to my macros 100%. Are you including everything, right? So a lot of people misunderstand, like, this is super important. You got to track all the things. And they also, again, just to reiterate, don't realize how many calories that exercise burns. It's really not that much, right? Going back to what I was saying earlier about our clients that we sometimes have come in and they join and they think, oh, this, weight training doesn't work because I didn't lose any weight. But they also aren't doing anything about their nutrition. And what they also don't realize is just because you weight train doesn't mean you can eat like an asshole. Okay. I mean, if you do, good on you, but enjoy that. But then don't say that it's not working because it is going to be your nutrition that is going to be the game changer. Yes, exercise burns calories, but oftentimes not as many as you think. And it should not be the main driver for your fat loss. Next, let's dive into the juicy little topic of fat loss drugs. All right. Well, we're just going to talk about Ozempic and its sister formulas. I don't know. There are several. Is it really a miracle drug? Right. I have had so many people DM me, ask me, send me things on Instagram, and they're like, what do you think of Ozempic? Da, 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 da. And I know Coach Glitter and I, we did an episode. We've talked about it before. I believe maybe we were talking about semaglutide, which is another, I believe, form. These types of drugs were created to help people in the medical field, help patients with type 2 diabetes. Okay. This drug or this class of drugs helps regulate your blood sugar and your appetite. However, it is not a fat burning mechanism. So a lot of people think, oh, if I take Ozempic or semaglutide or whatever, it's helping me burn fat. That's not what it's doing. Okay. People will say, and this is going to get very soapboxy, but people will say to me, I've tried everything, Diane. I've tried everything. I've done this. I've done that. I've tried everything. And I did Ozempic and semaglutide. I know how you feel about it. Okay. But it's the only thing that worked. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about that. Okay. So what it does is it makes you crave less and it makes you eat less. How is that any different than restricting your food? Okay. It's not. It's a Band-Aid. So, of course, there is a population of the world that needs this drug. I'm not disclaiming that at all. Then the reality then becomes for those of us that are using it as simply a fat loss tool is this drug is just making you eat less. It's not a fat burner or have anything to do with burning your fat. So for those that are saying like, I've tried everything, I was eating nothing before, I go, shit. Okay, the elephant in the room says that you're probably not 100% tracking accurately, because if that were true and you were indeed eating less like you thought, then you should have had produced some weight loss, right? It acts as a mechanism to help control your hunger hormones. Okay. Again, hunger hormones. It's not doing anything with like fat receptors or fat metabolizing fat or any of that. It has to do with your hunger hormones, the hormones that come up and say, bitch, you're hungry, or you think you're hungry, or keep eating, right? The hunger hormone that tells you when you're full and when you're not full. But it does not actually do anything by way of burning fat. So for those of you that are like, oh, well, I tried dieting and it didn't work until I did Ozempic, I definitely would say, I don't want to call bullshit, but I would say, were you truly in a deficit for a long enough time and maintaining that? Because I have dabbled with semaglutide when I was going through one of my preps several years ago, because I'm not saying that, I'm not justifying it by any means. I would not do it again. I was dealing with some very low leptin levels, which is the hunger hormone that tells you when you're hungry. And I was always hungry. Like, this was something that was affected by years of competing. And I was going to go into another contest prep. For those of you that have been listening long enough, I had hired Coach Adam from Team Elite Physiques. We had gone through, man, I don't even know how many months it was. I dropped 20 pounds. I was down to like 140, I don't know, 142, 143. And a good part of that was the only way that I could manage my ravenous appetite was through using Ozempic, which was semaglutide. Okay. Now, I was cheating my hunger hormones. That was the only way that I felt I was going to be able to get through my preps sanely. So this is something you have to ask yourself, right? Like, I get it. You're frustrated. You want the silver bullet. You want to make magic. You want the fat loss yesterday. But is this something that you are willing to be on for the rest of your life? That is something you need to ask yourself. If this is not medically necessary for you, you have to ask yourself that question. Because what's going to happen, because it happened to me and it happens to a lot of people I see come off of Ozempic, not all of them regain all their weight. Okay. Some of them have maintained their weight loss because they have now also included better eating habits and an exercise program, right? Because it gave them some motivation and they started losing weight and they're like, oh, okay. And they started eating better and things like that. So there are definitely success stories. I'm not saying that they're not. However, it's really a band-aid in terms of dealing with your hunger cues, your hunger hormones. And oftentimes what I see happen is that girls will come off of that, women will come off of that, and they'll say, yeah, I lost 30 pounds with Ozempic, but I gained it all back. And that's because when they stopped, guess what came back? Their hunger. And so, unless you have the ability to self regulate that and not go off the rails and start getting into a routine where you track your macros and your weighing and everything coming off of something like Ozempic, you are definitely going to struggle. Now, I don't know enough about the long-term effects of those kinds of drugs to really speak on that, but I would say save it for those that medically need it. So if you go to the doctor and you're, clinically obese and this is like a last-ditch effort, do that according to your doctor's suggestions in tandem with getting your nutrition right and also your exercise. Because when you're ready to come off of that, you will have created the pillars for long-term success when it comes to your diet and your exercise. All right, the next thing that my 40-year-old baddies, my over 40 baddies need to think about, for those of you that maybe came from an overly dieted world, a competition prep world, things like that, you'll likely resonate with this because there was a point in time where I was like afraid of certain foods, right? I know that sounds silly, but I had to look at things and say, okay, I can have real food. And what I mean by real food is if I go to a birthday party or there is an event I'm going to where the foods that I normally would have control and choosing over aren't there, right? Maybe I want a piece of birthday cake or I want to have a slice of pizza or something like that. I became really afraid of those foods and I was like, nope, I can't have that. It's not healthy. It's trash food, right? It's real food. It's like, yes, sure, it's not technically a single ingredient whole food items and clean, AKA, I love that word, clean eating. However, the reality of it is I'm going to be presented with these situations. Now, I've had enough experience with dieting to where I don't just eat things to eat things anymore. I don't have this like FOMO, like, oh, I got to eat it because I don't know when I'm going to have it again. I used to have that. But when it comes to situations now, I can say like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, that birthday cake, maybe it's a store-bought cake, right? Like I'm kind of judgy like that. I'm like, that's like from the grocery store. But like if somebody's grandma made it or whatever, it's like some family recipe, bitch, you better believe it. I want to taste that. Like I want to have a slice of that, something I want to enjoy. And I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, I had a piece of cake. I'm now not on a diet, right? Like that's just not how it works. So when you start to create a sense of balanced eating, those like little tiny situations that pop up in your life don't feel so overwhelming. Like you have to make a decision, right? Like, oh, I don't know. It's either like I can't go to this party because there's going to be cake there, or I'm going to go if the cake looks good and it looks worth it. Maybe you have a bite of someone else's, and if it is really that good, then you have a slice of it, right? It's just knowing that you can have those things. It does not mean you're not going to be successful in your fitness and health endeavors. You have to be rational with your portion sizes, your quantities, and know that the reality of it is that at the end of the day, if you are trying to lose body fat and this is something you want to partake in, you just have to still remember you need to be in a calorie deficit, right? So there's no doubt that you might have to like minimize exposure, or you might have to minimize these foods for some time to build in some better habits and build in some confidence around your willpower muscles for a little bit, right? But know that that is also going to drain, like your willpower batteries drain after a while. So the more that you fight the urge for some craving that you're having or whatever, the bigger that urge becomes. I feel like the louder it becomes, the more you start like thinking about it and seeing it and things like that. And so this is where you have to realize, like, okay, if I want to enjoy that thing, I want to enjoy that thing. And how can I make that work with the rest of my balanced eating and not overthink it? And it is entirely possible. All right. The next thing you need to consider when you are trying to get lean over 40 is how much cardio and what type are you doing? Okay. You know, I like to clown on cardio. It does not mean I don't do cardio or I don't like cardio or I don't think cardio is beneficial, because that is not true. None of those statements. I think I enjoy cardio to a degree. I do feel like it's important part of being a human is getting in a little bit of sweat, getting your heart rate up and things like that for health, longevity. Also very great for those of us that love to weight train, because this helps with your recovery between your sets. So you're doing leg press. If your leg days, you are sucking back wind and you are struggle bussing, it makes sense for you to add in a little bit of cardio to help bring up your cardiovascular system to help keep up with those demands when you're weight training. Now, one thing that I've done as of most recently is, and I feel like it's just been forced by the nature of the season of life that I'm in, is if you've been listening for a minute, last year, the last quarter of the year was a tough one for me. And it was a chapter of life. Like I tell a lot of my clients, like right now is probably just a season that you're in where your fitness isn't taking a complete back burner, but it's like, it's on the front burner, but it's like simmering. It's just a little low simmer. It's not a rolling boil. It's not too much and it's not completely cold. It's the Goldilocks spot. Well, I'm not used to Goldilocks in it. Okay. I'm used to being like hardcore, like I said at the beginning of the episode. Now, by the nature of my life and things that had changed, I'm exercising much less. I'm doing about half of the weight training that I used to, which also means half of the cardio that I'm used to. So the past for me, let's paint that picture. And I know there's a lot of you that either are still doing these things or can also say this used to be you, was filled with group classes, running, boot camps, HIIT style training all the time, plyometrics all the time. I did CrossFit. I was training 6 days a week. I was doing, intense stair mill cardio sessions and sprints on the treadmill and all these things, not all at the same time. But this was what I was classically doing in most phases of my fitness journey earlier on. And that is a lot to keep up with. And what I have noticed is, because I spent a good amount of time early on in my weight training journey, building muscle and taking the time to lay that foundation down. I've mentioned before, got this hair. I've mentioned before how my first foray into weight training was hiring a trainer and going 3 days a week, weight training, exactly the same style that we do at our studio, and laid the foundation for competition prep. Now, that was then the foundation and how I started training years and years and years, right? I didn't stray away from that ever for very long. And I think that because I have built that solid body of muscle, that I can now get away with working out half as hard, half as much, and it's actually doing so much better. And so the other part of that is the cardio piece. So what I want to share with you is what I feel is the secret sauce. Okay. So listen up, baddies. This is your secret sauce that you just need to put on repeat. All right. Weight training 3 to 4 days a week. Now, this does not mean you just like knocked out a couple dumbbell bicep curls in your garage gym. Okay. This is like, you're getting into, hopefully you've got like a barbell, some machines, you're doing like compound movements that are requiring and are very demanding of the muscles of your body. This does not mean you're like pooping your pants hard or you're doing powerlifting or you have to hire a strength coach. No, this is just get in the gym, either use the machines, learn how to use a barbell, hire a trainer, do something weight training based. Okay. 3 to 4 days a week. For me right now, it's usually three. If I hit four, I'm like, this was a good week. Okay. Most of those days include some kind of lower body conditioning. Two for sure are solid lower body weight training days. And the third day for me particularly, this does not need to be for you, but for me, it's just some vanity touch up of what I want on the upper body. I'm not trying to grow my upper body. I'm really just trying to maintain it, keep a little pump going, and that's it. So 3 days of weight training, 3 to 4. This is your secret sauce. Okay. The next is walking. I know. Did I lose you yet? Walking. I am just getting up out of my chair, going and taking my little motivational walk and making sure that I'm moving. Okay. You know that I'm not a stickler for being obsessive about your smartwatch. However, I like to use it as a guide. So I know, okay, yeah, I've been sitting a while. I want to get up and move around some more. If I hit 10K, great. But I generally want to get at least 8. I want to move around and get 8. I'm not going to go up and down my stairs and create some kind of maniacal pattern throughout my house to hit 8,000 steps. But if I'm around ish 8, like, high sevens, and I'm happy with that. Get in there walking. It's the most underrated form of keeping your body fat low. And also, the other things that you have to think about is if you're like, nope, that's not going to work for me. When you just walk, it keeps your appetite much happier than when you are doing group classes, group fitness, spin, boot camp, Orange Theory, throwing your body up and off and down on the floor, doing burpees, plyometrics, HIIT training, all this like crazy intense because it's got to be that. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Okay. And if you look at any of the athletes that I have got on stage, right? IFBB pros that I have got on stage, clients of mine in their 40s and 50s and 60s on stage, most of them do zero style HIIT type high intensity training. Now, there might be smatterings of that in their programming early on because they like it. And I'll throw them a bone a little bit here and there. It's not my favorite. And it's for multiple reasons, but specifically with competitors, a lot of it comes down to some when you train people online, it's challenging because I can't be there to make sure they're doing things properly, right? A lot of people are doing these things incorrectly and injuries happen. And when you're in a contest prep scenario, you're running on very low fumes of food, low fumes being your energy in, which is your diet, is usually very low, and your output is very high. It is not smart. And this actually goes for anybody who's dieting. If you're dieting and you're like 11, 12, 13, 1400 calories and you're drilling your ass away at some crazy boot camp or group class or spin or some shit like that, and you wonder why you're always tired, why you're always starving, why you can't stick to your diet, why you keep eating the pantry at night, why you can't sleep right, like nothing's changing. It's because these perpetual types of high intensity extremes usually jack your hunger up. They, can with extended time disrupt your hormones a little bit. So walking is like snore fest because we're like, oh, it's so boring, right? Like that's not going to work. Most of my competitors, if they'll do a steady pace of something on the stair mill. Maybe they'll do a treadmill. It's not the one and only way. Some coaches really like to include some kind of plyometrics and things like that. But again, it needs to be appropriate for your fat loss timeline. And it should not be when you're in extreme deficit. It's just a recipe for getting injured and jacking up your hunger. Okay. Now, if I decide I'm like wanting to do some cardio, I will just do some steady pace and I keep an eye on my heart rate. I'm not like, it's not religion for me, but I try to stay in more of like a zone 2 cardio, which is going to be easier on my body. It does not cause oxidative stress and inflammation. And it's going to look something like maybe it's a brisk walk. Maybe it's a light stair climb. For me, I try to keep my heart rate around 125, 130. And that might seem pretty low, but what you have to realize is this is also very age dependent. So the older you are, you don't have to get your heart rate as high as you once did to achieve similar results. So if you're curious as to like, well, I would like to do that, then find your zone 2 heart rate. Just Google it. Just put in your age and say zone 2 heart rate range for women 40 years old or whatever. It'll spit it back to you. It'll tell you kind of a range. And then when you're doing your cardio, stay within that range. And you're going to feel weird. It's going to feel like you're not doing enough, especially if you're used to being drenched in sweat. And like the only way you're successful is if you burned 500 calories in your Orange Theory workout. Let me tell you that while that's great and that's fine, if you enjoy it, honey boo boo, you do you. However, if you're finding that that's what you're doing and you struggle staying on your diet, it's probably because you're doing too much. It's too much for your energy systems. Okay. Some other things that you need to do to maintain lower lower body fat levels as we age is just being more active. And this is just what I do is I'm like, okay, I'm not doing intentional cardio. I get out and do my walks, but that's not like on a machine trying to hit that zone 2 like heart rate. I just do simple things like leisure walks outside are my biggest thing that helps reduce stress. Then I will do things like parking further away. I take the stairs when I'm at the airport. Like I was just at the airport the other day. I walk around. If I've got 30 plus minutes, I walk around. I don't sit and just scroll on my phone like all the other people there. I'm walking around. I'm exploring the airport. I got some earbuds in, usually listen to a podcast or something. I'm moving. I pace when I'm on the phone. If I'm on the phone, I'm usually walking at the same time, walking around the house. I'm doing laundry. I'm doing something. When I'm on meetings, sometimes I'll go on walks and I'll be on a meeting or a phone call. So it's just getting more active. That's what I need you to do. And then the other thing you need to do is include some kind of stress relief practice. Like I mentioned, leisure walks do it for me. Magnesium salt baths are great. Find stuff that's going to help you reduce stress. Super important for my women over 40, just to kind of keep hormones nice and happy. And then I like to include some kind of restorative exercise practice. For me, that usually is yoga, or I'm really focusing on my mobility. And I know when I need to do that. And I will usually include that post-workout. Like today, I had a great lower body day, leg day session. And I spent 15 minutes afterwards. I just put a couple songs on and I went through an entire really nice mobility routine, and it feels good. Okay. That's your secret sauce. That is your secret sauce. Okay. It's weight training, walking, cardio that is not going to be too intrusive on your energy systems. Be more active, include some stress relief, and have some kind of restorative practice for your movement goals. Okay. And we talked exhaustively in the first half of this episode about the nutrition piece of things. The other key thing that you need to consider when you're trying to stay lean or drop body fat over 40 is, are you resting and recovering enough? Now, my diehard brain could not comprehend anything that was happening in a recovery sense of the word. And what I mean by that is, when I first started my weight training journey with my very first coach, I was like, it's weird having days off, right? Like, what's happening when I'm not doing anything? That means I'm not making progress. Like, I need to be doing things, right? I was pushing through injuries. I was exhausted. I had aches and pains. This was more towards like a few years into my competition journey, after I wasn't competing. This was like the off season, right? I missed a ton of sleep for exercise. That was something I did very, very often. We also have a very hard time convincing women of this. Like, when you start at Venus, you should not be going 4 times a week. Like, if you've done 0, sometimes that 4 is probably way too much for most women who have 0 experience weight training in the beginning, right? They think like, oh, I can't have rest days. It's not enough for me to be effective. But the reality is you cannot change the shape of your body without recovering properly. Yes, the work is done in the weight room and in your training, and also The recovery piece is when it all comes together and your body is actually healing from that training and the shape is actually taking form. So my body, I feel like, looks way better than it did when I was trying to do twice as much, sort of at the same weight, because I'm doing less. I'm resting more. I'm training more effectively when I am training. I'm not as exhausted and tired and drilling my body down. And honestly, right now, I'm training and lifting as much as far as like pound for pound as I was when I was competing or like early stages. Because as you get down into the weeks before prep, you're weak. You're a weak little chicken. So that's all to say that I focus more on the quality of the 3 to maybe 4 workouts I get a week, making sure they're good quality training sessions. And the days in between, I am focusing on rest and recovery. Let's dive back into the importance of understanding the benefits of weight training. Okay. I love what it's done for my body. I love what it's done for my client's body. I love what it's done for my lower half, particularly. Most women who come to us stay because they are like, okay, I see the glutes of the girls in this studio. I see the transformations online, and then they become almost obsessed with it. They're like, damn, like everyone's nosing my ass. Everybody's noticing my hamstrings. I see my legs. I see the lines in my legs, all that fun stuff. It's because they deployed patience and they kept going. And we can probably put in my booty transformation here, the first photo in the corner, like in this like baggy orange bathing suit, was just, I had zero ass, like pancake flat glutes, nothing, concave almost, to the point where in high school I would wear a sweatshirt around my waist because I was always the girl that had the flat ass. My friend would always be like, "Oh, that guy said you had a flat ass." Like, this is not fake. I'm 100% being real with you. Okay. Now, funny story is when we went to a New Year's Eve party and I was scantily clad and wearing, my little fun, sexy outfit, I had strange women, not women, not strange women, but like strangers, women who were strangers, came up to me, more than one, asked me if my butt was fake. Okay. And I'm like, I wanted to be offended, but I was kind of like, I'm so flattered. And we had a full discussion of like my lower body training. And, they were asking, like, oh, well, what's your routine? And this and that. And I'm like, okay, I train hamstrings, glutes, quads. And a lot of the time I hear, oh my gosh, I'm so afraid to do that. I'm intimidated by the weight room. I'm going to look bulky. And I'm like, I love that I can change my shape with weight training because you cannot do that with cardio. Okay. Cardio, while yes, it'll change your shape in a smaller version of the version you are now, it's not going it's going to be a smaller version of you now with less muscle tone, because if you aren't including some kind of resistance training, then you're just going to be a smaller version, right? And this is when people are like, oh, I'm taking Pilates because it gives me long, lean muscles. That's not a thing. You can't, your muscles just doesn't go, oh, okay, I'm going to just be lean and long because I'm doing Pilates. That's not how it works. There has to be a mechanism for muscle change. And if you're not getting that, then there's going to be a point of diminishing returns with your Pilates training. Sure, you might have a little bit of shape and tone, but that is going to diminish after a while. I've had multiple, and I will not say who they are, Pilates trainers, well-known Pilates trainers in our town who have come to us for weight training. Okay. They didn't share that or disclose that on their Instagram, which is fine. It's whatever, but they came to us to do their weight training because it was not something they were going to achieve with Pilates. Sorry, spoiler alert. Okay. The reality is that exercise programs, are either putting on a muscle or they're burning calories. And yes, some can do both. But when you're looking at a program to start, you need to look at it, be smart about it, ask a trainer if you're not sure, somebody you may know, and say, I'm looking at this program. What do you think? I get that all the time. I had some girl, some random gal, maybe you're listening. I feel like it was maybe Instagram, I don't know, or Facebook, say, hey, I just have a quick question. Like, I bought this program. I've been working with this trainer. What are your thoughts? She sent me a couple screenshots. took me 30 seconds. I looked at it. I was like, are you a power lifter? And she's like, no, I'm 52 and I just wanted to start weight training. I'm like, why are all your rep ranges like 6 to 8 for like bicep curls? I'm confused. Okay. Anyways, I'm just throwing shade, but you got to put muscle on your body. You got to make that a priority to change the shape of your body. And it's scary. It's nerve wracking. A lot of people are intimidated by it, but I'm telling you, it is very eye opening and you will notice tremendous difference. Okay. Now, I'm going to kind of whip through this last one, but it is very important. This is the 10th one. I saved the best for last. Okay. It is very important if you are over 40 that you know your hormone levels. So I want to talk to those of you that are perimenopausal or you're menopausal. Okay. Usually you're in my age group. Okay. I'm perimenopausal. I'm going to be 46 this year. You want to know and you need to know what your hormone levels are. Here's why. Are you ready? This is just my opinion. Okay. I'm not a doctor, but if you trail back some episodes, there are a few episodes where I have interviewed hormone specialists for the podcast. Now, a lot of people are concerned because they're like, well, I balance my hormones and I'm doing the things, but it's not making me lose weight. Here's the thing. Just because you're doing hormonal therapy, it does not mean that you're going to dramatically lose weight. This is what I need you to understand. And this is what's incredibly frustrating. Now, what it is going to do when you get your hormones in line, I mean, I don't care if you're 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. If you are experiencing disruption in your mood, in your sleep, stress, happiness, sexual health, skin, your body's ability to put on muscle, your recovery, right? If you're struggling with any of those things, the next step, this is a little check engine light that your body's kind of telling and flashing at you, is to get your hormones checked. Because when you can get your hormones in line, the hormones that are disrupted are going to likely balance out and you won't be experiencing those things. Now, when you get all of those things dialed in, that helps you become more optimal. And I hate to use that word, but you become more optimal. Now, once you're feeling better and you have your hormones in line, this is now the time for you to now naturally probably feel more inclined to be more active, to move more, to eat better, to make better choices, and to drink less. But that doesn't always happen. What happens is that we are still stuck in thinking the hormones are the magic pill or the magic bullet, but we're still not doing the back end work to lay the foundation for us to be successful. So yes, you might be experiencing all those great effects from your hormones, but you still need to do all the things, right? You still need to make sure that you're eating well and training and doing all that. The hormones are not going to be your end all be all. They are going to help tremendously. However, it's not like you pop a pill and you just like, okay, this should be working. You really have to still do the work and you're going to feel better about doing the work. It's so huge. You cannot balance your hormones and not do the other things and expect miracles to happen. It's just not going to happen. It's a very, very huge misunderstanding that people have. People hit perimenopause and menopause and they start experiencing depression and lack of energy and low libido, and they don't think to check their hormones. But I'm going to tell you, once you do and you get that all regulated, it is a game changer. But you still, my friends, my 40-year-old baddies, you still have to do the other things. It will be better, but it's not going to be the end all be all. Okay. Stop worrying about what you're doing wrong and trying to find a magic bullet. All right. This is the end. This is the summary. We are here. It is all the things. It is all the things consistently. You need to be self-aware. Let's just recap. How does what you're doing affect you? You have to be very self-aware. Number 2, you need to know what your calorie intake is. The next one is you need to recognize that you can eat real foods and still be on track with your diet plan, right? It doesn't have to be 100% deprivation. Then we have the fact of you got to just be more active. You got to move more, okay? Cardio doesn't need to kill you. Primary form of exercise, strength training will give you leaps and bounds better results than just cardio. And give yourself permission to listen to your body and take proper amounts of rest. You do not have to be hardcore all the time. Okay. Balance your hormones, balance your, all of your hormones out. That way, your energy, your sex drive, your mood, and all those things are in line to actually help you want to train and eat well. And be grateful. Be grateful for your body. This is the only body you have. I'm so proud of what this body has done for me. It's remarkable. It's created life. It has morphed into a crazy sculpture, and it's strong and resilient and powerful and sexy. And those are the things I want you to be able to say about yourself, and you're going to get there. All right. Now, speaking of getting there, I want to be the girl that gets you there. And we're doing our 7-day Glute Goddess Challenge. It's starting April 1st. There will be a link in the show notes. There is going to be one in the description here over on YouTube as well. It's a consistency challenge. And it's 3 days of weight training and 3 days of zone 2-ish cardio. Okay. I'm giving you the solution. We will have some nutrition stuff throughout that we'll coach you on and do some coaching videos and things like that. But it's really for you to understand the importance of weight training. It's going to be a freaking a massive, wonderful challenge. It's going to be held primarily in the private Facebook group, the Boss Bitch Besties Fitness Community over on Facebook. There's over 2,000 women in there right now. So make sure that you find that link, sign up. You'll have all the details there. It's going to be amazing. You're going to get your workouts in an app. You can take them to the gym. It'll have a video for you to watch so you know exactly what machines and moves you need to be doing. I mean, we spell it out for you just to really give you that boost and umph you need to see what it's like to train in the gym. Okay. That was a lot. That was fun. I love my over 40 baddies. My mission is to make fat loss and your dream body easy and attainable without all of the old school gimmicks and tactics that we're used to seeing out there, with real food, a balanced approach, and understanding that you don't have to kill yourself in the process. All right, you guys, I love you. Come say hi to me over in the Boss Bitch Besties Fitness community. And until next time.